I had 4 months left to live, not because I was sick, not because of some terminal diagnosis, but because I had already made the decision. I had picked the date, sometime in the fall. I had started getting rid of my possessions. I was planning my funeral in my head. I was saying silent goodbyes to the job I loved, to my horses, to everything that used to bring me joy but couldn't anymore. Depression had won. Anxiety had crushed me. I couldn't drag myself out of bed most mornings. And the nights? The nights were torture. Insomnia kept me trapped in my own dark thoughts, replaying every failure, every reason why the world would be better without me. I was done fighting. Then came May, a rainy evening, and 3 tiny lives abandoned on the side of the road. Pit bull puppies, dumped like trash. 2 boys and a girl. The biggest was maybe 10 pounds. The smallest? 8 pounds soaking wet. You could count every rib. His eyes were scared, uncertain, like he'd already learned that humans weren't to be trusted. I scooped them up, not because I wanted to keep them. God, no. I had no business taking care of puppies when I was barely taking care of myself. I just needed to find them homes, good homes, and then I could get back to my plan. But something happened that I didn't expect. The smallest one, the shy one with those piercing blue eyes, looked at me, and I felt something I hadn't felt in months, something I thought I'd lost forever. Hope. His name is Huckleberry. And somehow, this unwanted, abandoned 8-pound pit bull puppy became the reason I'm still here today. He saved my life. Not in some metaphorical, poetic way. He literally kept me alive. This is our story. It's raw. It's real. And it's proof that sometimes, the souls we rescue end up rescuing us right back. So let me take you back to where it all began, to the darkest place I've ever been. Because you need to understand how far gone I was to appreciate the miracle that happened next. Hit that subscribe button right now, because this little stray is about to do something extraordinary. Something that saved my actual life. And if you think you know where this is going, I promise you don't. What happens next will absolutely wreck you. Let's get into the darkness first. I need you to understand something. When people talk about depression, they often describe it as sadness, as feeling down, as having a bad day that stretches into a bad week. But that's not what this was. This was drowning while everyone around me was breathing just fine. This was waking up every single morning and immediately feeling the weight of existence crushing down on my chest before I even opened my eyes. I had struggled with anxiety and depression my whole life. I knew the patterns. I knew the cycles. But this year? This year was different. This year I had reached my breaking point, and I didn't just bend, I shattered. The mornings were a special kind of hell. My alarm would go off, and I'd lie there, staring at the ceiling, trying to convince myself to move. Just move. Swing your legs over the side of the bed. Stand up. Get dressed. Do the basic human things that everyone else seems to do without thinking. But my body felt like it was filled with concrete. Heavy. Immovable. Exhausted from simply existing. And here's the cruelest part. I had a job I absolutely loved. A job I had worked so hard to get. The kind of career that should have made me excited to wake up in the morning. But instead, I was calling in sick. Making excuses. Dragging myself there on the days I couldn't avoid it. Then spending 8 hours pretending to be functional while my mind screamed at me that I was failing. That I was letting everyone down. That I was worthless. The nights were somehow worse. While the rest of the world slept, I'd lie awake. My mind racing through every mistake I'd ever made. Every way I'd disappointed people. Every reason why the pain of living outweighed any possible future joy. Insomnia became my constant companion. And in those dark, silent hours, the thoughts got louder. More convincing. More reasonable. That's when I made the decision. Sometime in the fall. I didn't pick an exact date yet, but I gave myself a deadline. A finish line to stumble toward. And once I made that decision, something shifted. Instead of feeling more afraid, I felt relief. Like I finally had a plan. Like I finally had control over something. I started preparing. Going through my possessions and deciding what to keep and what to get rid of. Not because I was decluttering or organizing, because I was erasing myself. Making it easier for whoever had to clean up after me. I'd hold things in my hands, books I'd loved, gifts from friends, clothes I'd worn on happy days, and think, will anyone want this? Should I just throw it away now? I was planning my exit like other people plan vacations, methodically, calmly, with a sense of purpose I hadn't felt in months. I had no idea that in just a few weeks, 3 abandoned puppies would stumble into my path, and that the smallest one would give me a reason to tear up those plans and choose to stay. It was a Tuesday evening in May when everything changed, though I didn't know it yet. I was driving home from work, one of the few days I'd actually managed to show up. The rain was coming down in sheets, that kind of spring storm that makes the world feel even more gray and hopeless than it already did. I almost didn't see them. Three small shapes huddled together on the shoulder of the road, soaking wet, shivering. Puppies. Someone had dumped them there like garbage bags. Left them to whatever fate found them first. Starvation, cars, predators. It didn't matter to whoever abandoned them. I should have kept driving. I had my own problems, my own countdown ticking in my head. But I couldn't. Despite everything going on inside my broken mind, I still had a heart that broke for animals. I pulled over. 2 boys and a girl, all pit bull mixes. You could tell immediately, those distinctive blocky heads, the muscular little bodies. Well, they should have been muscular. Instead, they were skeletal. The biggest couldn't have weighed more than 10 pounds. The smallest, God, he was tiny. 8 pounds at most. Every rib showed through his wet fur. His legs looked like they might snap if you held him wrong. And he was terrified. While his siblings came to me with cautious optimism, tails doing those tentative half-wags, this little one hung back. Those enormous blue eyes, pupils dilated with fear, watched me like I might be the next person to hurt him. He trembled, not just from the cold and rain, but from something deeper. Someone had already taught him that humans weren't safe. I knew what people said about pit bulls. The media stories. The stereotypes. The fear. The breed bans. Dangerous. Aggressive. Not to be trusted around kids. I'd heard it all. I didn't care. These were puppies. Babies. And they'd been thrown away like they meant nothing. I loaded all 3 into my car, the little shy one last, moving slowly so I wouldn't scare him more. They huddled together in the back seat, dripping rainwater onto my upholstery. The bigger 2 started to relax almost immediately, but the smallest kept watching me in the rearview mirror with those haunted blue eyes. On the drive home, I made the plan. I'd foster them temporarily. Get them healthy. Find them good homes, really good homes, the kind they deserved. It would take a few weeks, maybe a month or 2. I could manage that. It would give me something to do with the time I had left anyway. Then I'd go back to my original plan. What I didn't know, what I couldn't have possibly known, was that the smallest one, that 8-pound ball of fear and bones, was about to completely derail everything. He was about to give me a reason to tear up the calendar, to cancel the date I'd marked in red. He just had to trust me first. I wasn't supposed to fall in love with him. That wasn't the plan. The plan was simple. Foster these 3 puppies for a week, maybe 2. Find them good homes. Check that off my mental to-do list. Then get back to the other list. The darker one, the one that ended with my exit from this world. But the smallest one, there was something about him. While his brother and sister bounced around, full of puppy energy and chaos, he stayed close. Quiet, watching me with those enormous blue eyes like he was trying to figure me out. Like he could see straight through all my carefully constructed walls and into the broken parts. One was hiding. I'd sit on the floor, and he'd climb into my lap. Not demanding, not needing anything. Just there. His tiny body would curl against my chest, and I'd feel his heartbeat. This rapid, determined little rhythm that seemed to say, I'm here. I'm here. I'm here. It sounds crazy, but it felt like finding the animal version of your soulmate. You know that feeling when you meet someone and it just clicks? When you don't have to explain yourself because they already understand. That's what it was like with him. Instant. Undeniable. Magnetic. I named him Huckleberry. And slowly, so slowly I almost didn't notice at first, something started to shift. I'd wake up in the morning, and instead of that crushing weight of dread that usually pinned me to the mattress, I'd hear his little paws scratching at the bedroom door. He'd burst in, tail wagging like a helicopter, and launch himself onto the bed. We'd play. Stupid, silly puppy games that made me laugh. Actually laugh. When was the last time I had laughed? The nights became different, too. Those long, tortuous nights where insomnia kept me prisoner in my own mind, where every negative thought would spiral and multiply until I felt like I was drowning, they started to ease. Huckleberry would curl up next to me, his warm body pressed against mine, and somehow I could sleep. It had been so long since I could sleep. I'd lie there in the dark, one hand on his soft fur, feeling him breathe, and the noise in my head would quiet. Just a little. Just enough. He didn't judge me for not showering. He didn't care that I couldn't answer emails, or that I'd called in sick to work again. He didn't see my failures, or my weakness. He just saw me, and for some inexplicable reason, that was enough for him. For the first time in months, waking up didn't feel like a punishment. Going to sleep didn't feel like surrendering to my demons, because I wasn't alone anymore. I had Huckleberry, and Huckleberry had me, but I couldn't keep him. I had already found him the perfect home. They were coming to pick him up at the end of the week. I kept telling myself that, reminding myself. This was temporary. He deserved better than someone who was barely hanging on. someone who had an expiration date. I just had to let him go. Smash that like button if you're feeling this. And drop a comment. Tell me about your pet that's gotten you through hard times. I want to hear their names. Now, back to the story. For 2 months, Huckleberry had been my shadow. My reason to get up. My reason to keep breathing. But I couldn't keep him. That's what I kept telling myself. I had a plan, remember? And that plan didn't include a future. The family was perfect. They had come to see the female puppy initially, but the moment they met Huckleberry, something clicked. They had kids who would adore him. A big backyard. Experience with dogs. They were everything a puppy could want. Everything he deserved. They were coming that weekend to pick him up. I should have been relieved. I should have been happy that I'd found him such a wonderful home. Instead, every time I looked at him, at those blue eyes that had learned to trust me, at the way he'd curl up against my chest at night, at how he'd gotten so much braver and more confident, I felt my heart breaking into smaller and smaller pieces. But what choice did I have? I couldn't keep him. It would be selfish. Because in a few months, I wouldn't be here. And then what? He'd be abandoned again. Confused. Heartbroken. Wondering why the person he loved had disappeared. I couldn't do that to him. He'd already been thrown away once. So I went through the motions. I prepared myself for goodbye. I took extra pictures of him. I memorized the way he smelled like puppy shampoo and sunshine. I let him sleep in my bed every night, soaking up every moment, knowing our time was running out. During the day, I'd watch him play, and my mind would drift to the other planning I was still doing. The planning I hadn't stopped. My funeral. What I'd write in my notes. How to make it easiest on my family. Huckleberry had made the days bearable, had given me pockets of joy I didn't think were possible anymore. But the darkness was still there, lurking, waiting. I was trapped between 2 impossible realities. Keep him and hurt him later. Give him away and lose the only thing keeping me tethered to this world. Then came the work trip, 4 hours away, a couple of nights out of state. I had been dreading it for weeks, nearly canceled multiple times. The old me, the depressed, barely functioning me, would have absolutely bailed. Would have called in sick, maybe even quit. But then I had an idea. What if I brought him? It could be our last adventure together. One final goodbye. A few days where I didn't have to think about handing him over to strangers. Where I could pretend, just for a little while, that maybe we had a future. I booked a pet-friendly hotel. I loaded him into the car. He jumped right in, tail wagging, excited for whatever came next. He had no idea this was supposed to be the end of us. Neither of us knew it would actually be the beginning. The week before I was supposed to give Huckleberry away, my job called. They needed me to travel out of state for a work trip, 4 hours away. A couple of nights. Normally this would have been exciting. I loved my job, or at least I used to, back when I could still feel things like excitement. But by this point, I was barely functioning. I had been struggling so much that I'd been thinking about canceling the trip altogether. Maybe just quitting. After all, what was the point? In a few months, none of it would matter anyway. I'd be gone. They'd find someone else to fill my position. Life would go on without me. I stared at the email for what felt like hours, my finger hovering over the reply button. Cancel. Just cancel. You can't do this. You can barely get dressed in the morning. How are you going to drive 4 hours and pretend to be functional for 2 days? Then Huckleberry walked over and put his head on my lap, those blue eyes looking up at me like I was his entire world. And suddenly, a thought crept in. A strange, unexpected thought. What if I brought him with me? It could be one last adventure. One final goodbye before his new family picked him up that weekend. One last road trip with the little soul who had made my life bearable for the past few months. The idea of traveling with the puppy actually sounded kind of fun. And I hadn't used that word fun in a very long time. Before I could talk myself out of it, I was Googling pet-friendly hotels. I found one. Booked it. Hit confirm before the rational part of my brain could remind me how ridiculous this was. A depressed woman planning her own death, taking a puppy on a work trip, like some kind of normal person doing normal things. The morning we left, Huckleberry was so excited. He had come so far from that scared, skinny stray I'd found. He bounded into the car, tail wagging, ready for whatever adventure awaited. He had no idea this was supposed to be our last one together. He had no idea that in a few days, he'd have a new home, new people to love, and I'd go back to being alone. Back to counting down the days. As I pulled out of the driveway, I looked over at him in the passenger seat. He was standing on his back legs, front paws on the door, watching the world fly by with pure joy. Something inside my chest tightened. This was going to be harder than I thought, but I couldn't let myself get sad. Not yet. He had a wonderful family waiting for him. They'd love him. They'd give him everything he deserved. And me? I had my ticking clock. 4 hours stretched ahead of us. Just me, Huckleberry, and the open road. One last hurrah before we both moved on to whatever came next. That 4-hour drive became the best road trip of my life. Huckleberry was the perfect co-pilot. He didn't whine or get restless. He just curled up on the passenger seat, occasionally lifting his head to look at me with those blue eyes, his tail doing that little wag whenever I'd reach over to scratch behind his ears. Sometimes he'd rest his chin on the center console, just watching the world fly by through the windshield, completely content to just be there with me. For the first time in months, I wasn't trapped in my own head during a drive. I wasn't rehearsing my goodbye letters or calculating timelines. I was just present, talking to him about nothing and everything, singing badly to the radio, watching him perk up at every new smell when we stopped for gas. When we got to the hotel, something magical started happening. The woman at the front desk literally gasped when she saw him. "Oh my goodness, look at those eyes." "What's his name?" Huckleberry, ever the charmer, stood up on his tippy toes against the counter, tail wagging furiously, trying his absolute hardest to give her kisses. She was smitten immediately. Over the next couple of days, it became a routine. Every time we passed through the lobby, Huckleberry would make a beeline for the front desk, standing on those tippy toes, greeting everyone like they were his long-lost best friends. Guests would stop us in the hallways just to pet him. People in the breakfast area would ask if they could take his picture. Hotel staff would purposely come by our room just to say hi to him. And every single time I mentioned, casually, trying to convince myself as much as them, that he was going to his new home when we got back, the response was always the same. "There is no way you can let that dog go. Are you kidding? He's obsessed with you. That dog loves you too much. You can't give him away. When he looks at you, I can see it. You two belong together." The weird thing was, they were right. I could feel it too. My anxiety, which usually skyrocketed in unfamiliar places, was manageable, almost non-existent. Every time I felt that familiar tightness in my chest starting to build, Huckleberry would sense it somehow. He'd nudge my hand with his nose, or jump into my lap, grounding me back to the present moment. At night, he'd curl up against me in that hotel bed, his little body warm and solid and real. I'd lie there in the dark, listening to him breathe, feeling his heartbeat against my side. And for the first time in forever, I'd actually fall asleep. No tossing and turning for hours. No lying awake until 3 in the morning, drowning in dark thoughts. Just sleep. Peaceful, healing sleep. During the work events, knowing he was back in the room waiting for me made everything easier. I actually participated. I smiled. I laughed. People told me I seemed different, lighter somehow. Because I was different. I had someone waiting for me. Someone who needed me. Someone who looked at me like I was the entire world. If this is hitting home for you, share this video with someone who needs it. You never know whose life you might touch. And subscribe if you haven't yet. More rescue stories coming soon. Now let me tell you what happened next. It was the last night of the trip. I was lying in that hotel bed with Huckleberry curled up against me, his head resting on my chest like he always did. His breathing was steady and peaceful. Mine wasn't. In less than 24 hours, we'd be driving back home. And the day after that, maybe 2 days if I could stall, his new family would come pick him up. They were good people. Really good people. They had a big yard, another dog for him to play with, kids who would adore him. Everything a puppy could want. Everything except me. I stared at the ceiling, running my fingers through his fur, feeling his warmth against me. When had I started sleeping through the night? I couldn't even remember. It just happened, somewhere along this trip. No more lying awake until 3 a.m., drowning in dark thoughts. No more staring at the clock, counting down the hours until I had to face another day I didn't want to face. Now I actually looked forward to mornings. Because mornings meant him. My chest tightened. How was I supposed to wake up without him? How was I supposed to go back to that emptiness, that suffocating darkness that had convinced me life wasn't worth living? I had been so sure of my plan before, so certain that ending everything was the answer. I had been methodically preparing for months, getting my affairs in order, like they say, making it easier for everyone left behind. But now I couldn't imagine not being here. Not because some miraculous cure had fixed my depression, not because my anxiety had magically disappeared, but because this 8-pound puppy, now closer to 15, had given me something to hold on to when I had nothing left. He shifted in his sleep, making that little contented sigh he always made. My heart broke. I couldn't do it. I couldn't give him away. But what right did I have to keep him? Just because I needed him didn't mean I should derail his chance at a perfect home with a perfect family. I was still a mess, still barely holding it together, still taking time off work because I couldn't function properly. What kind of life could I really give him? Except, he didn't seem to care about any of that. He just wanted to be with me. And God, I wanted to be with him. My hands were shaking as I reached for my phone. It was late, too late to be making calls, but I couldn't wait until morning. If I waited, I'd talk myself out of it. I'd convince myself to do the right thing and let him go. The phone rang twice before they picked up. "I'm so sorry to call this late," I started, my voice cracking. "But I need to tell you something about Huckleberry." There was a pause. I could hear my heart pounding in my ears. I can't give him to you. I know that's selfish. I know you were excited, but I need him. I really, really need him. And I think maybe he needs me too." Silence. Then, the most unexpected response. "We know." "What?" "When we came to see the puppies, when we saw you two together, we knew. You were meant to be together. We could see it. Honestly, we were surprised you were even considering giving him up." Tears were streaming down my face now. "You're not angry?" "Angry? No. We're happy for you both. Keep him. Love him. He's exactly where he's supposed to be." I hung up and looked down at Huckleberry. Those blue eyes were open now, looking up at me like he'd known all along how this would end. "You are mine," I whispered. "And I'm keeping you." For the first time in months, I fell asleep smiling. When I got back from that trip, something had shifted. I can't fully explain it, but I felt different. Lighter. Like someone had cracked open a window in a room that had been sealed shut for months, and fresh air was finally flooding in. I was keeping Huckleberry. That decision alone felt monumental, because it meant I was planning for a future. Me, the girl who had been counting down the days until her own end, was suddenly thinking about puppy training, vet appointments, and what kind of dog bed to buy. It sounds so simple, but it was everything. The morning stopped feeling like punishment. I'd wake up to Huckleberry's face inches from mine, his tail already wagging before his eyes were fully open, like he'd been waiting all night just to see me again. We'd go outside together, me and my now not-so-tiny companion, and I'd breathe in the morning air and actually feel it filling my lungs instead of just going through the motions of existing. I started doing more things outdoors, hiking trails I used to love but had abandoned, sitting by the creek and just listening to the water, simple things that used to recharge my soul before depression drained it dry. And Huckleberry was always there, right beside me, my constant shadow, my anchor. Then something unexpected happened. I rescued another horse. Let that sink in. Months earlier, I had been planning to rehome my gelding because I figured my family shouldn't have to deal with him after I was gone. Horses are expensive. They're work. They require a future. And I wasn't supposed to have one. But there I was, pulling a mare from the slaughter pipeline, bringing her home, making plans for her training and care. It was like my brain had finally accepted what my heart already knew. I was staying. I was actually staying. The work with the horses became therapy in itself. There's something about being around these massive, powerful animals that grounds you. They don't care about your past or your mistakes. They just need you to show up, be present, and be consistent. So that's what I did. I showed up. A couple of weekends ago, we went to a Christmas parade. Me, my gelding, and a mane full of Christmas lights that I'd braided in myself. We walked through town with lights twinkling in the December cold, and people were cheering and kids were pointing, and I was smiling. Actually smiling. Not the forced kind I'd been faking for months, but a real, genuine smile that came from somewhere deep inside. I felt like myself again. Not completely. I'm not going to pretend it's all sunshine and butterflies now. My mental health is still a daily battle. Some mornings are harder than others, but I'm fighting now. I'm in therapy. I'm working on myself. And most importantly, I have hope. I wish I could tell you that everything's perfect now. That Huckleberry fixed all my problems with his wagging tail and unconditional love. But that's not how mental health works, and I think it's important to be honest about that. Every single day is still a battle. Some mornings I still wake up and feel that familiar weight pressing down on my chest. The anxiety still creeps in. The dark thoughts still whisper sometimes. But here's the difference. Now, before I can spiral too far, there's a 70-pound pit bull trying to climb into my lap like he's still that 8-pound puppy I found on the side of the road. And I'm not about to tell him he's not a lapdog. Because honestly, I need him there. I'm in therapy now. Real consistent therapy where I'm actually doing the work instead of just going through the motions. I talk about the darkness. I talk about that fall deadline I had set for myself. I talk about how close I came to not being here. My therapist asks me what changed, and every time, the answer is the same. A skinny stray with blue eyes who needed me as much as I needed him. Huckleberry comes with me almost everywhere now. To the barn when I work with my horses. To the front porch when I need fresh air. To bed every single night where he curls up against me, until my racing mind finally quiets down enough to sleep. He's my shadow, my constant companion, my living reminder that I made the right choice to stay. I had to take a break from work, the job I loved so much, the one I had worked so hard to get. That was difficult to accept, but I'm focusing on getting better, on building myself back up, piece by piece. And for the first time in a long time, I actually believe I'll get there. I have hope, real tangible hope for the future. The other animals help too. My husky mix, my beloved cat, the 5 feral kittens I'm still trying to socialize and find homes for, and my 2 horses, including that new rescue I pulled from the slaughter pipeline. 6 months ago, I was planning to rehome my gelding because I thought my family would have to deal with him after I was gone. Now, I'm braiding Christmas lights into my new horse's mane and taking him to parades. I'm training again. I'm living again. But Huckleberry is different from all of them. He's not just a pet. He's my best friend. He's my lifeline. He's the reason I answer my phone, get out of bed, make plans for tomorrow. When I look at him, at those same blue eyes that looked up at me on that rainy night in May, I remember what it feels like to be needed. To be loved without condition. To matter. I'm still here. I'm fighting. And I'm planning to keep fighting for a long, long time, with my trusty Huckleberry by my side, reminding me every single day that life is worth living. Thank you for being here and letting me share our story. If this touched you, like, subscribe, and share it forward. Drop a comment with your rescue story. I want to celebrate these incredible animals with you. You're not alone. Stay strong, and I'll see you in the next one.